What's happening? My name is Eric. Are you ready for me? Are you ready for another episode of the craziness that lives inside my head? Welcome to the show. This episode is part 3 of my retirement. I've been retired, and I'm reminiscing of all the jobs I had in my life. I worked. I started working when I was 13, right? I'm retiring at 71, and I'm up to job. We went up to job 14. That was Hirsch Fennecar. That was my 14th job. And now we're going to continue. Because in the middle of working with Hirsch Rent-A-Car, they went on strike. Remember, they went on strike. I was a door-to-door salesman of life insurance. They let me go because I wasn't making any money for them. I wasn't bringing any revenue. Other things happened in my life. If you heard any of my podcasts, I had a very bad experience in 1979, and I ran off to San Francisco. Didn't make it in San Francisco. Now, mind you, I went to San Francisco because there's a Hirsch Rent-A-Car in San Francisco, and I was told by the Hirsch Rent-A-Car in New York that they would contact the manager in San Francisco and I could work there. That did happen. Unfortunately, I'm not. See, now my memory is gone, but I don't understand. I forgot what happened. Something happened. I didn't have the qualification. I had to do something, and they didn't hire me. And that's a long story. And I was living on the piers, the dock of the bay. Remember, living on the dock of the bay. Well, that was me. So anyway, I returned back. My mom, love mom, sent me a plane ticket to get my butt back to New York City. Came back to New York City. That's another long story. Wound up living with my dad in Spanish Harlem. And I got my job back at Hirsch Rent-A-Car. So there I was, working again, because my father wasn't going to let me stay with him without a job. And I was working back at Hirsch Rent-A-Car. Now, I got fired twice at Hirsch Rent-A-Car. Remember how many times I getting fired? Well, Hirsch Rent-A-Car fired me twice. The first time I got fired, I didn't get along with the shop steward. I told you, Hirsch was a shop steward, union shop. Everybody was unionized. That's when they went on strike in 79. Well, I'm back in 79. I came back March of 1979. They were back to, everybody went back to work, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to work, and I didn't get along with the shop steward. And being that I didn't get along with the shop steward, he accused me of drinking, of being drunk. I said, I'm not drunk. I'm not drunk. He said, well, you can't drive. You can't work tonight because you're drunk. I'm not drunk. He went and told the manager, the dispatcher, not to let me work. And he didn't. And I said to the dispatcher, I said, I'm not drunk. I said, if you think I'm drunk, I'll take a drunk, what you call that, the alcohol thing, the breathalyzer. And because we was only around the corner from the hospital. He said, no, you can't work. So he said I couldn't work. So what happened was, I refused something, and I got fired. And he fired me for being drunk. I got fired for being drunk. I think he fired me because I cursed him out. I'm quite sure I did curse him out. Boy, you get a little licking in me, this mouth just go on. So I probably did curse him out. So I got fired. So I went to apply for unemployment, and I couldn't get my unemployment because I got fired. So I had to go to what you call it, the a hearing, but they told me to go to the union, the labor board. Unemployment said go to the labor board when I explained my story the way I explained to you. So I went to the labor board, They had a hearing with the judge, and I explained to the judge, and the manager who fired me was there, and the shop steward was there. That wasn't the same. It was a different shop steward, by the way, who was with me at the hearing. And the judge asked the manager, "Why did you fire Eric?" And the manager said, "Because the shop steward told me to." And I was shocked that he even was saying that. He was a young kid. He was young. He had to be in his 20s. He was a manager in his 20s. He said, the shop steward told me to. And the judge was like, "What?" And he looked at the shop. Wasn't the shop steward that was with me. It was a different shop steward. He said, "You can't. You in the union. You're not supposed to get your men fired." He goes, "If this man is not back on the job within 72 hours, I'm fining the union $10,000 a day until he gets his job back." And that's how I got my job back at Hertz Rent-A-Car. Everything, how they say, yada 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 yada. And this now we're talking about close to, was it October? I came back in March. Okay, now it's October 1979. I'm still with my dad, still working at Hertz, and I was drunk, and the guys that was in the car with me were transporters. So they're transporting us to Newark Airport to pick up cars to bring back to the city. And they said, "You can't work, Eric. You're too drunk. You too high. I wouldn't get in the car. You shouldn't do this. You're going to have an accident. Tell them that you're sick." So what I did, when I got to Newark Airport, I got on the phone, a different manager, an older manager, and I said, "Well, I'm not feeling well." He said, "What do you mean not feeling well? It was a Friday night. Friday nights is very busy at Hertz. We got customers waiting for cars. Get your butt in here with that car. Bring a car in here." I said, I can't drive. I'm not feeling well." "Well, you're fired." Took me back to the base in New York City, and he said, "What do you mean you can't do it? There's nothing wrong with you. No, you're fired. We He was like, "We got customers waiting for cars. You're fired." I said, "Okay." Went to collect my unemployment, and we had to have another hearing because they wouldn't give me unemployment. They said that I was intoxicated. I wasn't sick. I was drunk. Anyway, so I got a phone call waiting for the hearing. I got a phone call from the president of the union. He said, "Oh, look, it was a misunderstanding. Go back to work." He kept saying, "Go back to work." I said, "No, I'm not going back to work. I'm with my unemployment." So he said, "No, what it is, come see me." And I said, "No, I want my unemployment." So I called unemployment. They gave me my unemployment. Because what happened was, you can't fire somebody because they're sick. And they couldn't prove that I wasn't sick. Because the thing, they asked the guy, the manager, did he send me to the hospital? Did I go to the emergency room? Did I do it? He said no. He just fired me on the spot because I was sick. And they gave me my unemployment. I had a choice. I could either go back to work or get my unemployment. I went down, signed for my check, and that was it. I was unemployed. I was unemployed. 1980 came. I still with my dad in 1980, giving him rent money, but I was unemployed. And then I got kicked out of my dad's house. Why did you kick out of your dad's house? Because I wanted to bring boys in to have sex. Not in my house. So he kicked me out. So I just got a room in Sugar Hill, Harlem. He lived in Spanish Harlem, so just further uptown on the west side, Sugar Hill. Got my room. If I'm not mistaken, I think that damn room was like about $100 I think it was it was $75 a week. I paid $75 a week for a room. And being that now I didn't have a job, even though I was unemployed, and unemployment don't last that long. I think it was 26 weeks. I had to do something, I had to find a job. So my sister said, "Well, why don't you just go to Manpower and they'll train you for something. At least you'll be in Manpower. And by the time they finish training you, you can get a job before your unemployment runs out." So I went to Manpower. They trained me. They gave me clerical training and some other kind of training. and they had a contract with American Stock Exchange. American Stock Exchange was going to supply. They're going to supply the American Stock Exchange with employees that could do clerical jobs, and that's how I got into the American Stock Exchange. I went there for an interview. They hired me, and you want to hear something funny? The interesting thing, since we talk about retirement, I was 28 years old. Human resources. That's the first time I heard the terminology human resources. The woman says, she was running down the benefits. I had health benefits. They took 3% of your salary a week towards your pension plan. And she said, well, in order to retire, you have to have 30 years service and 65 years old. Of course, my dumb ass, I added it all up. I said, wait a minute. Are you kidding me? I said, 30 years from now, I'll be 58 and I can't retire till I'm 65? So the woman laughed. Oh, don't worry about it. We're automating the trading floor. You only got 5 years. This position is only open for 5 years. After that, So what she was saying, after 5 years, they're going to get rid of me, right? Well, it didn't happen. It took them 20 years to automate the American Stock Exchange trading floor. Now I'm working for Amex, the American Stock Exchange. That was, at that point in my life, my 15th job. I started out as a data clerk. That's what they hired me for, a data clerk. And then, I think it was like 5 months, 6 months, because they was training me to be a reporter, which was a big promotion. Then I became a stock reporter on the trading floor, working in the crowd. In those days, I don't know if you see pictures of those days before the trading floor was automated. If you've seen pictures of how you stand in the middle of a crowd and you got to get all those sales. It was hectic. They paid well, and I was very happy about that. So now, I also got a job after a year working at the stock exchange. I got a job. I was in a rooming house. And then my younger sister, she had an apartment up in the Bronx. And it was a high rise. And she said, well, it's a low income apartments, high rise apartment. Why don't you put in an application? So I put in an application. And this is before I got my promotion. I put in an application. And one of the requirements, you got to make $14,000. And that's what I made. I made $14,000 a year at that time. So I got this apartment as a reporter. I made more money, but I put in the application when I was a data clerk. So when I got promotion, I got the apartment. It was great. So I could afford the rent better. And I worked there. I mean, as I was working at the stock exchange, and you know how it is. I want things, as my mom said. If you want things, you got to go work for it. And I wanted a car. I did get a car, by the way. I got a second-hand 1984 Lynx. This is the year that was 1991. I bought a 1984 Mercury Lynx. And I was short on cash. So I got a job, a second job, working maybe 3 nights a week for they call it livery cab service. That's the cab service where you call up for a cab. And I had a radio in the cab, and I worked there. I don't think I did it that long. I don't think I did it for a year. I might have did it for 6 months. It was kind of hectic. I mean, working at the stock exchange, you get up at 4 o'clock. I had to get on the train. I had to be home by 5, which is possible, even though I took 2 trains and a bus to get home. Definitely got to be home by no later than 5:30. Get in my car. I had to be at the base no later than 7. I worked 7 to 12. Then get home at 1 o'clock in the morning. Then get up at 7 a.m. in the morning. Get on the train and bus to get to the stock exchange. At that point, the stock exchange was open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Those were my hours before they changed. So it was kind of durable. And plus, I was young. I was what, 20? Well, in my early 30s, mid 30s. So I was still young. Did it, but after a while, it got tiring. But that delivery car service was right now. It was my 16th job. I was in my 30s, late 30s now, or early whatever. It was my 16th job. So I couldn't do it anymore. I told them I can't do this. Just too rough. So I mean, I'm still working at Amex, and then I got a raise. They was giving out raises. Amex was giving out Christmas bonuses. It was a very good job. They were giving out Christmas bonuses. They gave out another raise. So the raise they gave the following year helped me. So I really didn't have to work at the doing the cab service. But I'm gonna be honest with you. What did I say? You want things. So 1996, I did it again. I went back. I was a little short on change. I wanted more. I wanted more. And I was a little short on change. And in 1996, I went to work back at the yellow cab driver. I became a yellow cab driver for the second time in my life. That would have been the 17th job. That was the 17th job I had again. So that was in 1996. Now, they changed the job situation. When I was a yellow cab driver in 1971, you drove the cab, the tips was yours, and you got 49% of what you booked that night. Well, they went on strike. They went on strike. I had left already before the taxi strike. So I left already. So I knew about the taxi strike, but I wasn't working anymore. So now I'm back with the cab again, trying to make some extra money. And then I figured it would be easier because there was a cab company in the Bronx. I didn't have to get in my car and drive all the way to Queens like I did for the delivery cab service. And I get off at 4. I hopped on the train, get home. I still had to get in my car, by the way. Get home and get in my car to drive to the cab thing. But it was only the cab base. But it was only a 15-minute ride, 20-minute ride. So, and I had to be there by 6 o'clock, by the way. And you had to keep the car out, I think, to 11 or to midnight. You had to. They changed the way they did the cab thing. You had to rent rather. You rented the cab. So you paid them, I forgot how much it was. Let's say you paid them $200 to rent the cab for the night. So you had, I take that back. You could be out as long as you want. But if you don't make your cab money, the money that you made, if you don't make $20 to $200 back from renting the cab out, you're not going to return that cab until you make at least $200. So usually, and what happened is around midnight, you make your $200 back. Now, if you want to make money for yourself, you got to work till 6 o'clock a.m. in the morning. And that's how it was. You had to work 6 a.m. in the morning. I don't think I did it. I think I did it on weekends because I can't imagine me doing it. And I know for a fact, I remember doing it. I never made my money back until midnight. And right after midnight, whatever money I made was made for myself. And that would have been in my life of working my 17th job in the job field, paying Social Security to my Social Security taxes. Yeah. Now, so I was still working at the American Stock Exchange. The American Stock Exchange finally automated my position. So they didn't need me. They didn't need the reporters anymore or data clerks. Those two positions has been phased out. So now you have to take what they call a buyout. If you didn't take a buyout, you had to be retrained to work upstairs in the office. I didn't want to work in state. They had customer service. I did not want to work in customer service. So I took a buyout. And the buyout was, for me, you had to have 20 years service and at least 45. But you couldn't get your pension till you're 55. and you got a year's severance. So they gave that, which I heard that was the last buyout they gave, and that was given in 1999. Now remember now, I started working in 1980, so I worked there 19 years. But they said that they bent the rules a little bit, being that they gave a year severance instead of giving me my severance in one bunch. They broke it up. I getting paid every 2 weeks so they gave me a year's severance every 2 weeks. So that was the year 2000. So even though I didn't have to work to 2000, which I didn't, I took the 2000 year. I didn't work at all, but I got my check every 2 weeks. So that's how that went. And when I turned 55, I could take my pension, and that's how that went. And that is that for part 3. Because in part 4, there's more. And then we got part 5. So, if you didn't get bored to death listening to this story. Now, it's funny because somebody might say, well, did anything gay happen in this? There's nothing gay happen. You didn't do this. Well, I mean, I can't give out, I might get sued if I use names and tell what went on. Did I fool around with people at the stock exchange? Well, maybe. Did I fool around with people at the Hertz Rental Car? Well, actually, I could be honest with, because I don't know if they're alive yet. They might be dead. But yes, I did. There was 2 guys I did fool around with on a regular basis at Hertz Rental Car. But I'm not going to diverge who they are. And then I don't want to talk about all that because you could say, I make myself sound like a slut. And I'm not a slut. I'm a sophisticated person. Thank you for listening to the craziness that lives inside my head.